What are some shows that first come to mind when you think of 90s Disney? The first to pop up in your head might be animations like The Lion King, Aladdin, or Beauty and the Beast. But lurking in the dark was another Disney masterpiece that had something entirely different brewing: Gargoyles. This series was mysterious, dark, and bold, with a haunting plot and nail-biting action. Gargoyles didn't play it safe, and for this, Disney once considered creating a separate action universe centered on gargoyles. So what exactly happened to Disney's darkest and most ambitious universe? And why do fans still talk about it almost 30 years later? Let's dig in. The ambitious plan: Gargoyles as Disney's action universe. During the 90s, Disney was absolutely killing it. They had blockbuster hits like Aladdin, The Lion King, and all those classic family musicals. But back then, CEO Michael Eisner wanted more. He didn't just want Disney to be the go-to for princess stories and feel-good animations. He wanted Disney to break into the world of action. At one point, Eisner even wanted to buy Marvel. Yep. Long before the MCU, Disney was eyeing Marvel as a way to build their own action-packed universe. But the price tag was too high, and it felt like a risky move at the time, so Disney backed off. Since buying Marvel was off the table, Eisner decided to look inward, and that's when Gargoyles entered the chat. This dark, mysterious show, created by Greg Weisman, had already built a cult following when it premiered in 1994, and it was unlike anything else Disney was making. Eisner saw it as the perfect starting point for Disney's own action universe. So the team started brainstorming spin-offs. There were ideas like Pendragon, where King Arthur would go on quests in modern times, and The New Olympians, about a hidden society of mythological creatures. Other concepts, like the Dark Ages, would dive into the origins of the Gargoyles, and Bad Guys was set to follow a group of reformed villains trying to redeem themselves. Sadly, though, none of these projects ever happened. Not long after, Disney shifted gears and ended up buying Marvel and Lucasfilm instead. And suddenly, making original action shows didn't seem worth the risk anymore when you had Spider-Man and Star Wars under your belt. Gargoyles got canceled after its third season. The spin-offs that never made it. To Weisman, Gargoyles was his baby. It still is, even though he doesn't earn any profit from the show being on Disney+. So, needless to say, the prospect of Gargoyles being the next big thing for Disney once encouraged Weisman to create a series of spin-offs. The first in the list of spin-offs is Time Dancer, wherein Brooklyn, the gargoyle, second in command of the Manhattan Clan, would gain access to the Phoenix Gate, an artifact forged on Avalon, which would enable Brooklyn to go through a 40-year-long Avalon tour, starting from 1997 in Scotland. During this tour, he would meet two other gargoyle companions, Foo Dog and his mate Katana, and father two children with her, Nashville and Tachi. Weisman also hinted that Brooklyn, in Time Dancer, could have potentially met dinosaurs in the Mesozoic era, but we'll never know for sure. The next, and probably the most fully developed spin-off, is Gargoyles Bad Guys, which would have featured some of the toughest beasts from the Gargoyles universe, including Hunter, Dingo, Matrix, Yama, and Fang, the semi-reformed villains from earlier seasons known as the Redemption Squad. In this spin-off, the Redemption Squad was to be recruited by the Director as expendable assets to fight against some known figures in an attempt to redeem themselves and also battle the Illuminati. Next in line of notable spin-offs is Gargoyles 2198, which was to take place 2 centuries after Gargoyles in a dystopian Manhattan conquered by aliens. In this series, a new generation of gargoyles would rise to defend humanity. This spin-off would also potentially have a crossover with the Time Dancer, with Brooklyn and Foo Dog being featured in the second episode. Then there was Gargoyles Dark Ages, which would have taken us back to 10th century Scotland, way before the events of the main show. This one was supposed to focus on the Wyvern clan, their alliances, like with Prince Malcolm, their beef with humans, and all the drama in between. The main villain would have been in the Archmage, and Hudson was going to be the lead this time. If it lasted long enough, the show would have covered everything from the building of Castle Wyvern in 971 all the way to its fall in 994. And yeah, the Illuminati were even supposed to make a little appearance in there too. Another series, The New Olympians, would have focused on some mythological beings like centaurs, minotaurs, and satyrs and explored their isolation after they fled to a hidden island to save themselves from human persecution. Unlike the other spin-offs, this one was developed by Bob Klein even before the existence of Gargoyles, but Weisman created a backdoor pilot for the series to be incorporated into the Gargoyles universe in the second season of the show. Within the plot of the series, some new Olympians sought peace with humans, while others wanted nothing to do with them, and the rest yearned to return to a time when humans worshipped them. Last but not least is Pendragon, the spin-off series meant to feature King Arthur and the legendary gargoyle, Sir Griff. In this narrative, they would embark upon a quest for Merlin and would also clash with the Illuminati on multiple occasions. After freeing Merlin from the Crystal Cave, they would have set out for their next quest to find the Holy Grail. Season 2 featured an episode of the same name as a backdoor pilot for this series. Why it all fell apart. Corporate shifts and missed opportunities. Looking back at Disney's earlier plans, it indeed seemed like Gargoyles was destined for greatness. And it was, in fact, brimming with potential, but unfortunately, everything fell apart. But why? Here's what happened. During the 90s, even after Eisner planned big things with Gargoyles, there were multiple executive shakeups at Disney, which made Eisner lose his allies to branch out Disney. Instead, Disney went ahead and bought ABC in 1996, which made the company's priorities shift entirely and made them refocus on their family-friendly tone. Gargoyles moved away from its designated weekday slot to be featured as the rebranded Goliath Chronicles for Season 3 on Saturday mornings. This hurt the franchise in two ways. First, Weisman's involvement in the show was reduced to a bare minimum, thus messing with the heart and soul of the series. Second, to keep up with the family-friendly tone, the series became directed towards a younger audience with much simplified and whitewashed storylines. This stripped away the unique essence of Gargoyles, and the cult following that the series gained with fans who loved the darker side of Disney was all lost. O.J. Simpson's trial also made the situation worse for Gargoyles. While it may seem irrelevant now, at the time, the trial garnered widespread attention and hijacked the TV schedules of almost every network. As a result of this, Gargoyles episodes kept getting forestalled, thereby killing the momentum it once had. After all, how can anyone expect to build a loyal audience base when the audience didn't even know when or if the show was on? During the same time, Disney also began to measure the success of its franchise based on toy sales. It did launch some Gargoyles merchandise, but the sales of the same weren't attractive enough, and therefore, the expansion of the show tanked without the extra sales revenue. However, the forsaken ambition of reboot still remained somewhat alive until the 2000s, when the plans were scratched completely after Disney began purchasing some of the biggest storytelling universes like Marvel in 2009 and Lucasfilm in 2012. After owning the rights to some of the most popular action franchises like Spider-Man and Star Wars, Disney didn't feel the need to have an action universe of their own and risk it all. In the end, Gargoyles was left behind. The bold, interconnected universe that Greg Weisman and his team dreamed up, it was gone before it even started. At this juncture, we can say that it's one of those what could have been events. Maybe if Disney hadn't suddenly changed directions, or if the Gargoyles merch had sold well, or if O.J. Simpson's trial had been held at a different time, things could have been different, and Gargoyles could have been the blueprint for a shared universe. The closest calls. What almost happened? So by now, we all know Weisman had a ton of spin-off ideas for Gargoyles, but which of these spin-offs came closest to actually happening? As it turns out, some of these almost made it to our screens. First up, the series that was just one step away from being turned into reality was Bad Guys. This spin-off series went as far as having a full pitch ready with solid story outlines and character design. Since the former villains, who were the protagonists of the series, already had a backstory, it became easier for Weisman to develop the series as a whole. Think Suicide Squad, but within the Gargoyle universe. That's the vision Weisman had in mind for this. Unfortunately, despite the progress, it was not made into a full-fledged show. However, it did get turned into a 6-issue comic series in the 2000s by Slave Labor Graphics. Through the comic series, fans can still take a deep dive into what the show could have been. The series, Dark Ages, also held strong potential to be turned into a real show since it gave the fans a chance to explore the purest form of gargoyle culture since it was set in medieval times. Even the network showed strong interest in developing the narrative into a show. Rough outlines and early artwork were also developed for the series, but ultimately it never saw the light of day. For the fans interested in a glimpse of the series, elements of Dark Ages were featured in Vows. Another project that nearly took flight was The New Olympians, which was meant to revolve around the protagonist Taurus. At one point, Disney even showed serious interest in the series, which led to some early pitches and rough designs to help sell the concept of a hidden island of mythological creatures. However, it suffered the same fate as the other spin-offs. Pendragon also came really close to becoming a reality and even had crossover potential. Weisman believed it to be a really fun and adventure-filled series, which was just one executive decision away from seeing a green light. Although this series could not be made into a show, it was partially realized in SLG Comics. Gargoyles lives on, comics and fandom. So no, Gargoyles did not become Disney's ultimate action universe. But did that let Weisman's love for the series die? Absolutely not. He remained ever trusting and ever hopeful about the series, so he didn't just let the series end at Disney. Weisman knew very well that Gargoyles has an incredibly dedicated fan base, unlike any other Disney series, and in hopes of not disappointing those fans, he went ahead and teamed up with Slave Labor Graphics in the mid-2000s to create a new Gargoyles comic series. The comic completely disregarded the revamped ABC version of the show Goliath Chronicles, which was supposed to be Season 3 of the series, and instead started right where the second season left off. The comic series by SLG was more true to its tone and vision, and thus fans were ecstatic about it to the extent that they considered the comics to be the true third season of Gargoyles. SLG Comics didn't just breathe life into the third season of Gargoyles, but also gave new life to some of the tanked spin-offs like Bad Guys. They released a 6-issue comic series for Bad Guys, where they successfully showcased the redemption arc of characters like Yama, Dingo, Hunter, Matrix, and Fang. Through the comic series, Weisman was finally able to show the fans just how layered and complex the Gargoyle universe was. But that's not all. Fast forward to 2022, something even more exciting happened for the franchise, and Gargoyles made its comeback through Dynamite Entertainment. To the pleasure of the longtime fans of the series, Dynamite Entertainment brought back Gargoyles comics with Greg Weisman himself back in the writer's seat. These new comics weren't just trying to cash in on the nostalgia, but actually meant to add value to the series, and hence, they picked up from the original storyline and even gave the spin-off Dark Ages its moment in the spotlight. It goes without saying that the comics became a huge hit among the fans, especially for those who were dreaming about a comeback since the 90s. Beyond the comics, the fans also kept the series alive through cosplay, fan art, and even online campaigns. What's more riveting is that, according to Weisman, even Jordan Peele had expressed interest in reviving Gargoyles. However, whether he's still interested or not is unclear. Moreover, Disney has also remained pretty non-committal to the revival, and even though Disney hasn't explicitly said no to it, they haven't said yes either. All we can say at the moment is that the door has not closed, and with the kind of fan support Gargoyles has been receiving, there's always room for more. Marvelous verdict. And yeah, that's Gargoyles for you. It was weird, it was dark, and honestly, it didn't feel like Disney at all, which is probably why they bailed on it. But man, it had so much potential. Like, imagine if they'd stuck with it. We could have had crazy crossovers, time travel stories, medieval battles, basically an entire action universe before the MCU was even a thing. Wild, right? But even though Disney ditched it, the fans never let it die. There's still comics, people cosplaying, fan art, online campaigns, It's still alive because people refused to let it go. And who knows? With all the nostalgia hype these days, maybe one day it'll finally come back. Anyway, if you remember watching Gargoyles, or you're just now finding out about it, let me know your favorite characters or episodes in the comments. Smash that like button if you had fun with this video, and hit subscribe for more random dives like this. Alright, I'm out. Catch you next time.